I was uh, I was watching a video there recently about the effects of energy in terms of quantum relationships, and how energy can be coupled by the reducing of specific particles down to absolute zero, not relative zero. I mean absolute zero. And what happens then is there's zero there's zero resistance. If it's an electrical device, in a normal room temperature or whatever, regular temperatures, if you send electrons through, say, a wire, electrons will encounter atoms, and it hits them and is deflected off. That deflection is what causes heat. And in absolute zero, when the electrons move along a wire, there's no resistance, zero. It's not even fully understood why. And therefore, there's zero ohms. This is a remarkable thing. And it got me thinking about the human body, a consciousness, and life. Again, I'm just musing here, just throwing this out. I'm not saying it's a hard theory or anything. The discussion's down below for this. Now, if you associate life with heat, the human body or a mammal's body or most animals' body, with the generation of heat. When someone dies, they assume room temperature. What if consciousness flowing through the body, whatever consciousness is, flowing through the body is what's generating this heat in the same way electrons generate heat when they move through a wire or an electric circuit? That this body is the heat from it is the consciousness basically in control of it, using it in there as a symbol of it. And the heat that our body temperature generated, the heat that it generates, is a direct result of this consciousness flowing through our molecular and cellular structure, the whole body. When a person dies, the consciousness exits the bodies and the body goes cold because there's no more consciousness flowing through the body, that particular body. That suggests to me that consciousness is a form of energy. And as we know, energy cannot be destroyed. The moving electrons in a wire are still there, even though until the electrons stop moving. But that doesn't mean the electrons vanish. The electrons still exist. They're not flowing. The same thing with the consciousness. The consciousness still exists. It's not flowing through the cellular and molecular structure of the body. So when a person dies, the consciousness, as the electrical force, the body electric, leaves. And that's why the body goes cold. Brings us to the second thing. This is also explains why at the moment of death, people who report slowly rising out of their bodies. And they start seeing themselves or people around them from this near-death experience. This is quite literally the consciousness exiting. It no longer needs the body, or it's no longer using the body, and it's moving off to become part of some other body. This is probably what would also explain things like trees. Trees are don't we know recent studies have shown that trees actually have community groups that communicate through their root systems in the ground. That wouldn't have been surprising that anyone's a pagan, but now it's been scientifically validated. A tree dies in the winter. There's absolutely no movement in there. Its consciousness leaves. Now, what do you associate these periods of months with? Cold, ice. It's almost like trees have developed an ability to transcend death. What they do is rather than be destroyed by winter, they escape. And you see these things with yogis in the East who can shut their bodies down and they seem to be dead, but when doctors go up to them, they show that they're actually still alive. This proves to me that the consciousness is an electrical force of some kind. That's what we really are, and the body is just a vessel, just like the trees go dormant. But we don't actually find the same. We don't come back to the same body unless we've had an NDE. We go back to another body. And that light that they show at the end, people talk about they see a bright light and you move towards it. That's, I think, is probably being birthed out of a new vagina. If I was to I wouldn't put money on it, but if I was to actually throw a theory out there on it, there's far more from a pagan point of view to substantiate reincarnation than just about anything else. Resistance inside the body also probably leads to things like degenerative diseases. So, for instance, if you're constantly in a state of stress and anxiety, you will probably get diseases because this stress and anxiety is what's creating this flow of energy in your body or disrupting it and generating heat. And I think there's probably a lot of things in such as Chinese medicine, in Vedic medicine, dealing with things like chi and prana, that could teach us way more about this stuff than conventional Western medicine. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with conventional Western medicine in terms of things like surgery and so on. It's phenomenal. But there's a holistic, happy middle ground in all this. And if you ever seen someone dead in front of you, that they're not in there, you look at them, they're not in there anymore. It's like a light bulb has been switched off. It's like they're not there. That's just a husk, instantaneously. It's just a husk. They're not there anymore. So where did the life force go? And then instantly they become cold. They begin to become cold. That's because energy is not moving, and the energy was the consciousness. It's because the consciousness is off somewhere else, and it's no longer hitting against the cellular and molecular structure of the internal body and generating heat.